Maybe a quarter of it happened. Not like this.
The secret identity of Deadpool and Wolverine's mysterious Logan variant has been staring us in the face this entire time, and the true identity of this Wolverine perfectly bridges the gap between Days of Future Past, Avengers Secret Wars, and the 2017 masterpiece, Logan. Welcome back, ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy, and ever since Hugh Jackman's return as Wolverine was confirmed, the identity of this Logan has been up for debate. Is he a variant plucked from one of the Fox X-Men films? Well, probably not, considering that Wolverine never wore the classic yellow costume that we're seeing in Deadpool and Wolverine.
What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
Is he the same Wolverine from X-Men 97? Well, he's got the same yellow costume, plus the MCU has been borrowing a lot from the animated series, such as Xavier's suit and yellow chair, the look of the Beast in the Marvels, and the repeated use of that classic theme song. But I think that we've been looking in all the wrong places. We've been looking into Wolverine's past to find this Wolverine's true identity. But we really should be looking into his future, because this scene from Deadpool and Wolverine's trailer is directly connected to this scene from Days of Future Past and this scene from Logan. And we can prove it. And to do so, we're going to need to take a trip to the not-so-distant future, 2029. The last time we saw Jackman don the claws, Logan. And we're going to take a look back at that announcement video that Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds did for Hugh's return all those months ago, and point out the key moment that lends credence to our theory that this movie and Logan are connected.
Oh, you're talking about the movie Logan? I was in that movie.
You were not in Logan.
Yeah, I was. I was all over that movie. I was in the car. So what took you so long? Did you change the tire? Why are you covered in blood? What's going on? And I was on the bed when he was sad. Could you keep it down? I am very sleepy, and your sadness is keeping me awake. And I was there when he died. This is so sad because Logan has quieted the beast within him by embracing his long-lost daughter.
Wow, you were really in Logan? Ah, man, we're just messing with you. I made it look like Doug was in Logan by using a LUT on Wondershare Filmora. They're the sponsor of this video. Wondershare is a professional level, free to download editing software. So if you're wanting to make your own films or even your own YouTube videos, this is a great way to start. It is intuitive, easy to use, but also has these incredible LUTs that will elevate your project to a new professional color grading level.
So wait a minute, what is a LUT?
Well, when you edit a video, you normally have to color grade, but Wondershare Filmora has a variety of cinematic LUT filters that alter the look and feel of your project. So you can take footage of, say, Doug and apply this filter so it looks like he's part of a scene in Logan. As a professional video editor, I can highly recommend Wondershare Filmora and these new LUTs filters. If you click our link in the description, you can get started editing your projects today. Now, back to Logan. Logan was an absolutely phenomenal film that served as a perfect swan song for Jackman's Wolverine, and it was understandable why Jackman wanted this to be his final time playing the character.
But actually, if there is, you'll feel it's like, okay, I think we might have said everything, but there's still a little bit left, then that's the time to go.
Marvel Studios' Kevin Feige even said that his advice to Jackman was to not return to the role because Logan's ending was so perfect. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Logan's ending played a role in inspiring Tony Stark's sacrifice in Endgame.
You can rest now.
Now, one thing I really loved about Logan was how it was able to stand on its own and not be bogged down by the messy and convoluted X-Men timeline that preceded it.
These timelines are so confusing.
Now, I always kind of thought that Logan was in a slightly different universe or timeline than those original films. Hugh Jackman even said as much here.
We both wanted a movie that was a standalone movie, that wasn't necessarily intermingled with the history of X-Men movies, the timeline of X-Men movies.
But Logan director James Mangold said that the film does take place in the same timeline as the past X-Men films, and that it's set 5 years after the new future that we saw in Days of Future Past. But here's the thing. That's a future we don't know much about, and that could be what Jackman was referring to in that quote, the fact that this takes place in that rewritten timeline. And we think that the Wolverine body that our Wolverine woke up in that new future is the same Wolverine that we are getting in Deadpool and Wolverine, and Logan proves it.
Hey, I haven't seen Days of Future Past movie in a while. Remind me what's going on here?
Well, in X-Men Days of Future Past, which came out in 2014, we jumped forward 9 years into the future. The original X-Men timeline had found itself in an apocalyptic future in the year 2023. Logan's mind was sent into the past, to 1973, so that he could prevent Mystique from going bad and preventing this dark future from happening.
Basically, your body will go to sleep while your mind travels back in time. But once you wake up, whatever you've done will take hold and become history. And for the rest of us, it'll be the only history that we know. It'll be like the last 50 years never happened. The only person who will remember it is you.
So, when Logan's mind is sent into the past, he takes over his past body and his past mind becomes dormant. But later in the film, we see the mind of his 1973 body temporarily resurface.
How the hell did I get here?
What? You came to us.
Who are you?
And at the end of the film, when Logan is drowning, his mind returns to the new future and his 1973 mind comes back to the forefront. The mind of the Wolverine that we know wakes up in this new future, but he has no recollection of his past 50 years.
I think the history I know is a little different.
And that 1973 Logan is seen again in X-Men Apocalypse as Weapon X. This Wolverine escapes into the snowy woods and eventually connects with the X-Men and apparently becomes a history professor.
Logan, don't you have a class to teach?
A class to teach.
History.
But this means that there is a whole other Logan mind who lived those 50 years between 1973 and 2023. An entire mind with memories and experiences. He had an entire life. And that mind was then replaced with the Logan that we know when his mind jumped back to the new future.
It's very complicated.
No, it's not complicated.
Now, Wolverine's mind has always been messy. They broke his mind in the Weapon X program, and both of these Wolverines were victims of that program in their respective timelines. And I think that when Logan's mind returned to his new future body, his two minds from the two timelines would probably begin to merge, and perhaps even the memories of his old life from the previous timeline began to fade away as the new memories of a life he didn't actually live replaced them.
Brain may heal, but his memories won't grow back.
Memories, after all, are physically stored within the brain's hippocampus. So I wouldn't be surprised if shortly after this scene in Days of Future Past, we saw a Wolverine who is once again in great need of Professor X to help piece together his mind, because he has once again found himself in a situation like in the first X-Men film where he has no memory of his own life. And this is a theme that has been part of the Wolverine character for years. In the comics, we see Wolverine burdened by his lack of memory of his life before the Metal Claws. And in the reality-bending Scarlet Witch story that crossed over the Avengers and the X-Men and House of M, Wolverine is the only one who remembers that world before Wanda's manipulations. And I think Wolverine's memory and his mind being a part of many different realities and timelines is going to play a role in Deadpool and Wolverine as well. So this new future Logan wakes up in Days of Future Past seems to be a happy one where the X-Men live happily ever after. But we know that just 5 years later in Logan that the world went to shit again. Mutants are all but extinct and Xavier had a seizure that killed all of the X-Men, leaving Wolverine as the sole survivor.
Then you're noting a similarity to the Westchester incident over a year ago that left over 600 injured and took the lives of 7 mutants, including several of the X.
It's almost as if their extinction is inevitable. In X-Men 97, What If, and even the Spider-Verse films, we heard about absolute points in time.
The mystics of Camartage speak of absolute points.
Her death is an absolute point in time.
They are the canon. Chapters that are a part of every Spider story, every time.
Well, it would appear that the Fox-era X-Men films exist in a timeline where mutants are destined to go extinct.
Bummer.
Despite Wolverine and the X-Men traveling back in time and stopping the apocalypse, they only delayed the inevitable. And another mutant extinction comes just a mere 5 years later, and that's the future that we saw in Logan.
There are no new mutants, understand? There's been a new one born in 25 years, not anywhere.
In Dark Phoenix, which is part of this new timeline that Logan wakes up in, the X-Men don't wear black leather. They're wearing uniforms that are blue and yellow.
What'd you expect? Black leather?
Suggesting that in this new future Logan wakes up in Days of Future Past, he will find a yellow and blue costume hanging in his locker instead of that black leather that he's used to. In Logan, it is hinted that he did indeed have a yellow costume. We see a comic book and an action figure showing Wolverine in his yellow suit, which could mean that the Wolverine we've been seeing in Deadpool and Wolverine is the same Wolverine from that newly formed timeline. The Wolverine in Logan has the mind of the Wolverine from X-Men 1, 2, and 3, plus the Wolverine.
What about X-Men Origins, Wolverine?
Oh yeah, we don't talk about that.
But after resetting the timeline in Days of Future Past, Wolverine's mind is now in the body of a Wolverine who had a different history, such as having a yellow costume. And, like we mentioned a second ago, his mind is probably scrambled in a culmination of his old memories and his new memories. And that could be why he said this about the X-Men comic book.
You do know they're all bullshit, right? I mean, maybe a quarter of it happened, and not like this.
Now, I don't want to take away from the original intent of that scene. Wolverine was angry that the life and death situations he went through as an X-Man were being turned into a for-profit storybook. But I think that part of his frustration could also be that he genuinely does not remember key parts of his own life because his memories have been taken away and rewritten so many times. The Logan movie is about the character of Wolverine rediscovering himself and re-becoming the hero who we all know he is. But when we first see Logan at the start of that film, he seems to have forgotten who he is, figuratively speaking. He's downtrodden and beaten down, and this could be partially because he also literally has no idea who he is. He lived an entire life on a timeline that no longer exists, and there's an entire life that he lived that actually did happen, but he has no memory of it. And if his two timelines' minds are tangled, well, I can only imagine how lost he must feel. Add on top of that the guilt of not being able to save the X-Men from Charles's seizure, and you've got one depressed-ass Wolverine. A Wolverine who would find himself in a bar trying to drink away the pain. Now, we know from the trailers for Deadpool and Wolverine that this Wolverine failed his world.
This Wolverine let down his entire world.
It would make perfect sense for this Wolverine at the bar to be the Wolverine who witnessed all of the X-Men be killed by Xavier's seizure. We hear the bartender say,
"I told you, you're not welcome here. You're not welcome anywhere."
So this would line up perfectly with the way mutants are thought of in Logan just a mere 5 years after this new future in Days of Future Past.
Why don't you show some respect, Muty? You're looking at the man that wiped out your kind.
I think that our Wolverine, who we know and love from the original X-Men films, traveled back in time to change the future, which we all know is apparently a big no-no. He succeeded and woke up in a new future where the apocalypse didn't happen and the X-Men had yellow costumes. But the mutant's extinction is inevitable, and another mutant extinction happens pretty soon after he wakes up in his new future, leading us into the grim future that we see in Logan, which again takes place just 5 years after Days of Future Past. The Wolverine we're seeing in the bar is a Wolverine who thought that he saved the future only to find out that it's unsavable, and perhaps he's of interest to the TVA because he tampered with time. That could be why we see the TVA send Deadpool to arrest Wolverine. This Wolverine time traveled and messed with the flow of time and is now wanted by the TVA. And this entire theory is supported by the wording of the announcement video that Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds did explaining how he was back.
How is Wolverine alive
Yeah.
after Logan?
Logan takes place in 2029, totally separate thing. Logan died in Logan. Not touching that.
You'll notice they didn't say it's a different universe or, oh, it's a different Wolverine in a different timeline. No, they specifically mentioned how Logan took place in 2029, implying that, hey, that's in the future and that's still what happens, and that this story is taking place before. And I think that's exactly what's happening. I don't think this is just some random other variant of Wolverine from a different universe or a different timeline, blah, 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 multiverse. I think this story and this Wolverine are a crucial chapter in the story of the same Wolverine that we saw die in Logan. Jackman and Reynolds both adore and respect this character, and I don't think they just have him returned by just saying, oh yeah, no, he's just a different Wolverine. I think that we are seeing that missing piece of Logan's story. We are seeing what happened between this moment,
Logan, is everything all right?
Yeah, I think it is.
And this moment.
In the real world, people die.
I mean, I remember going to see Logan opening night, and this Deadpool short film played before the film where Deadpool is outside of a movie theater that's playing Logan.
Hey.
Wow, nice suit. Zip it, Stanley!
And Deadpool 2 opened with this. And from the Deadpool and Wolverine trailer, it looks like we even see Deadpool visit Logan's grave. These snowy woods appear to be the same place we see Logan die on the Canadian border. You can even see the same truck tipped on its side. Now, I don't think there's any chance that Deadpool and Wolverine just brushes off Logan as an Elseworld story. I think this story is going to be connected and have stakes, and I think that's the only way that Jackman would have agreed to do it. Plus, it all connects perfectly. In the trailers for Deadpool and Wolverine, we see Deadpool wanting Wolverine to teach him how to be a hero. And we see a Wolverine who no longer views himself as a hero.
Trust me, kid, I'm no hero.
But in Deadpool's quest to learn from Wolverine, it will be Wolverine who also learns from Deadpool.
But when Logan starts, he's still all sad and living in a future where mutants are extinct.
Yes, that's true. I mean, Deadpool and Wolverine's Wolverine still has a dark future coming with the events of Logan, but it all still makes perfect sense. Let me explain. I think that in Deadpool and Wolverine, we could learn that Wolverine's tampering with time in Days of Future Past was a violation, and the TVA is after him so they they can remove him as a rogue variant and then prune the timeline. Now, I'd say that Deadpool and Wolverine will end with Wolverine being returned to his timeline with no memory of his journey with Deadpool. But the lessons he learned along the way are still in his subconscious and will lead into his character arc in Logan. But that can't be the case because, guys, we've still got Secret Wars. I don't think you bring back Hugh Jackman as Wolverine in the Multiverse Saga and not have him be in freaking Avengers Secret Wars. Hugh Jackman himself has said how much he would have loved for Wolverine to be able to play around in that world.
I just find it almost impossible that there's not a way to bring Iron Man, all the Avengers characters, you know, Wolverine, the X-Men characters, Spider-Man, and somehow get them in together.
Anything's possible. Anything's possible!
So I think that Deadpool and Wolverine is going to end with setting us up for their role in Avengers Secret Wars. And then in Avengers Secret Wars, I think that we're going to see, like in the comics, this universe get reset. This is when we will get an in-canon reboot of the entire MCU. In the comics, we saw the main 616 universe combined with the Ultimate universe. And we think that in Avengers Secret Wars, we'll get a scene where Deadpool and his family are going to be joining the new culminated MCU, and Deadpool will encourage Wolverine to come with him. But Wolverine will say no, and then he needs to go back to his own timeline.
Go f yourself.
Deadpool will remind him of how awful things were and how sad Wolverine was, but Wolverine will insist. He'll explain how he can't leave Charles alone in that timeline. Remember that in this timeline, Charles will have just suffered the seizure that killed off all of his X-Men. Deadpool will start to tell Logan that if he doesn't go back, he'll die, because Deadpool knows how that story ends. But Wolverine will stop him and do a little fourth wall break of his own by telling him no spoilers.
Fourth wall break inside a fourth wall break.
Deadpool will agree to let Logan return to his timeline because Deadpool knows that despite Logan's fate, that timeline is his story. It's his destiny. And that timeline is where he is meant to be. He is needed there to take care of Charles. And it's this timeline where he meets his daughter and makes that ultimate sacrifice. And then we will see Wolverine walk through a portal back to his timeline. He'll have no memory of the events that happened in Deadpool 3 or Secret Wars, and he'll have a lot of heartache ahead. But we know that he's going to find peace. And guys, I just have to say that we like this idea so much more than just having Wolverine be some random other Wolverine from another universe. Hugh Jackman returning is a big freaking deal, and I want the emotional weight of having this be the same Wolverine that we know and love. So let me know, do you think that the Wolverine from Deadpool and Wolverine is the same one from Logan? Big shout out to the writer of this video, Colton Ogburn. Tell him your thoughts and theories down in the comments, or you can add them on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.